Buzz, 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 and welcome back to the Yellowjackets Hive for a special episode today. I'm so excited for this one, guys. Today, I will be joined by Kevin Alves, who, as you all know, plays our teen Travis. And I'm personally a really big fan of Travis and his character arc and journey throughout the show. He has evolved so much since we met him a few years ago now in season one. Kevin has done a really wonderful job bringing Travis to life and giving a lot of depth to the character. So let's bring Kevin on and get the conversation started. Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Hey Emily, I'm good. I'm good. You're too kind. Thank you so much.
Of course. Well, like I said, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. The fandom really loves the chance to get to hear from the cast about creating the show that we've all come to love so much, obviously. And season three has been a wild ride so far
Yeah.
as a viewer. So I can only imagine what it was like for you to be on the opposite side of that, creating it. Um, uh, and things are really starting to pick up and get absolutely insane at this point.
Oh
the
yeah.
showrunners are really working overtime this season to throw some shock and awe at us with things that I would have never in my wildest dreams suspected.
Oh,
It's
many times I had to put down the scripts. I had no idea what was going on. It was crazy.
I can only imagine. Like one of the questions that I have for you was about reading the scripts. So, when you first read the scripts, what did you think when you saw the fact that frog scientists were going to be involved with this season?
I spent the first few episodes really wondering what we were listening to and hearing, and so it was cool to finally get like an understanding as to what
Yeah.
everything was. And we've been teetering on this like, are they losing it? Are they not? And like, so to get some clarity into like parts of that is like so nice. And honestly, we were just excited to have other people there as well with us. We spent 2.5 years just us. So
Yeah.
it was cool to have some new faces.
I mean, it was shocking. I That cliffhanger after episode 306 was probably the best cliffhanger of the whole series, I think. Just showing those people showing up. That was the
Oh
last thing
yeah.
I was expecting to happen.
Yeah, and then they didn't even show really Joel. He was just like in the background, shadowy, and then
Yeah.
to reveal him in seven. It was such a clever way to put it all together, and they were all amazing to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all awesome.
So about about episode 8, the episode that just
Mhm.
aired this week. In this episode, Travis and Akquila are walking with Kodiak to the pickup point that he told them about, and Travis tells Akquila that none of it is real. So it kind of seems like he's losing faith a little bit in his belief in the wilderness. What do you think contributed to that change in his and shift in his mindset?
Yeah, in my bones, I've always thought that like the minute Javi died, that it didn't make sense for him anymore. Like
Yeah,
this idea of like the wilderness is taking care of them and is going to bring them back to their families. Just it never could resonate with Travis ever again. And so I think that's what's maybe a little misleading about the beginning of the season is he is joining Lottie with a bunch of stuff that I'm sure we'll get into more. But I think it's more about him dealing with his grief rather than
mhm.
dealing with like trying to connect with the wilderness at some level. And yeah, I think he's questioning everything by the time we start the season.
Yeah, and none of the other girls that are out there, with the exception of Shauna, I guess, can really understand what he's feeling because they didn't lose a brother, they didn't lose a dad. So
No.
I feel for Travis a lot. Like he's been through the ringer, in my opinion.
And he's willing to do whatever's necessary to like join the group. So like,
Yeah,
him eating his brother, he had to convince himself into this place of like that I'm connecting with him, and yet at the same time he knows he's really only doing these things because he has to, or else
yeah,
they would be after him next. It would be a no-brainer.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do you think that Travis wants rescue at this point? Akila seemed to kind of sabotage his plan a little bit by leaving that trail of fabric for the rest of the group to find you guys.
Yeah, I think undoubtedly, like when we're in episode 8, I feel like we can definitely tell, and in 7 as well. Like Natalie and Travis, I think are the two that, like, I undoubtedly am sure they want to go home like
Yeah.
right now, you know. And yeah, Travis wants to go home, and I think he'd be super willing to kind of throw everyone under the bus right now to do it, and then see what happens after. And yeah, I kind of think the moment with Akquila where he just like is like, "You're not a prophet. Like, let's
Mhm.
get over it." I think it makes so much sense because he's saying what we've all been thinking for like so
Yep.
many episodes in a row. It's like, all right, you're it's Cape fumes. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, she latched onto Lottie in a big way that I did not expect at all because
mhm.
it I mean, she didn't really seem like somebody who believed in all of that stuff either. So to see that shift in her was really surprising.
Yeah, and I
Uh
think feeling those first visions that probably like sold her really
yeah,
quickly, and Travis then being the one to be like, "I saw it and brought you here," and I think that's where we see kind of them for this whole season is Travis's guilt about that.
true. Yeah. And she also makes a really interesting comment to Travis. She tells him that he's the only person that she thinks that she can trust, which really caught my attention that she said that because I mean, Travis kind of offered her up to Lottie in the first place as like a substitution for him so that Lottie would get off of his back. You know what I mean? At least that's the way it came off to me that that's why
Oh,
Travis did that.
Oh, absolutely. He immediately was getting scared of Lottie and what she was pushing him to do, and he wasn't feeling any better. And I think that's the thing we have to understand about Travis at the beginning of the season is he's just trying to feel better and he's trying to
Mhm.
cope with his grief. And I think he was leaving all his sessions with Lottie. In episode 1, it's kind of really nice. Like they're talking to each other and there's something really nice about those moments. Then immediately after that, when he starts to hear the frogs and hear the things, and then Lottie pushing him to do it again,
Yeah.
you know that he's not feeling good, you know he's scared, and I think it honestly is a game day decision for him when he does push it to Akila because
Mhm.
he can't take how he's feeling anymore, and I think that that just kinda lingers. That's why Travis goes to the caves with him. I think that's why he's checking in with Akila. I think that's why he's bringing Akila with him.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it just comes down to his guilt about pushing this onto her and now seeing her believe it. I do think that part of him thought that she would tell Lottie to go you know where,
Yeah.
because, she didn't seem like she really believed in that stuff, and so, once he sees that she's buying into it and doing all this stuff, I think a lot of it comes down to him feeling really guilty for putting it on her and now watching her go through it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it seemed as if Lottie was almost like taking advantage of Travis in a way when she was making him like trip on the mushrooms repeatedly to see things. Why do you think he didn't necessarily object to doing that?
Well, I think Travis is complicated in the sense that ever since his breakup that we never really see on screen with
Yeah.
Natalie,
Mhm.
there's no one else that really talks to him. Like, he
Yeah.
doesn't really have anyone there. Like, there's no connection at all. And so I do think that he's doing it just because he likes having some sort of human connection. And he
Yeah.
is trying to understand his own feelings about like what he's done and eating his brother and all these things. And so I think the reason he's not objecting to it is just simply because he's searching for answers in himself.
Yeah,
And
hoping he'll get them.
Lottie's the only person giving him the time of day. No
That's
one else
very
is really
true.
even speaking to him.
Yeah, that's very true. So, a lot of people are curious and wondering if you can shed any insight into the meaning of the title for the episode 12 Angry Girls and One Drunk Travis, because we didn't really see anything to indicate that Travis was drunk here. So, did we miss something or like what?
I don't think you missed anything,
Okay.
everybody. I think it was an insert title that you haven't missed anything, but the writers are very smart and they
Yep.
put these little things in for a reason.
Hmm.
So I would just say everyone be patient.
Okay. Travis initially voted not guilty for Coach and at the trial, but then we see him change his mind after Lottie changes her vote. Why do you think he changed his mind? Like, why do you think he initially voted innocent and then switched to guilty?
I think he really does believe that Coach is innocent.
I think
Let me
so
make that
too.
clear. I think there's no question he believes Coach is innocent. I think he hears the story and something just doesn't add up, and he already doesn't trust pretty much any of the girls. Like, he
Yeah.
trusts nobody, and so, I think he thinks he's innocent, but Travis, he really knows how to stay alive, and I think that that's his superpower in this timeline, which is, I always say this, I commend his will to live
Oh
so
yeah.
much. Like,
Mhm.
it's something that I admire. It's the one thing I admire about him so much, which makes it even more sad to see what happens to him in the future and how it ends up happening. And, like,
Yeah.
knowing about the suicide pact that they had, knowing that, at every turn he could have just, lost it and then been killed by them in the past timeline, and that doesn't happen. It's like, you know, I think that just goes to show that at every turn, he's thinking about, "How am I gonna get home?" I think his want to get home is so strong that in that moment when the vote happens, even though he believes Coach is innocent, he knows it's turning. Like,
Mhm.
it's a majority is gonna turn, it's coming, there is no going back, and I think he sees Lottie and reluctantly knows where this is gonna end, and he just chooses to be on the other side to have less people question him. I think that's
I
really
mean,
what it comes down to.
that makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't wanna stick out like a sore thumb in that environment at all, so I get why he would
No.
do that.
Yeah. Poor guy.
Um, how do you think that Travis feels about Shauna being their new leader and that role being taken away from Natalie? He did say, that this would happen if Nat went through with killing Coach, and she did, so
Yeah. So, in I think it's episode 8 or episode 7, one of the 2, I think it might be it happens in both, where they're standing there and they're wanting to walk away and leave, and Travis is holding the crossbow, and Shauna's like, "You guys aren't going anywhere."
Yep.
I remember sitting there having the thought being like, "Travis could just shoot her in the head."
Yeah.
And
That's went through my mind too, like, "You're the one with the weapon, why aren't you doing anything?"
again, I think if it was just Shauna, I think Shauna would be done. But there's just, it's a group mentality, and the group is important. And so you always have to be checking how everyone's doing and, like, where is the tide shifting. And
Yeah.
I don't think he's willing to take those kinds of risks. I think he believes the longer he stays out there, the longer he can stay alive, the more likely he's going to get home.
Yeah.
And even though him and Natalie are the ones with the weapons, I don't think they're getting away from, 8 other people. So I think there's that. And so, yeah, he does not like Sean in charge. There's not an ounce in his bone. There's this one shot, I can't remember which episode it's in, where you see Shauna and then, like, it just cuts to Travis. I think it's when Shauna's saying, "I know we're all mad," and I think
Oh,
it's in
yeah.
6 before Coach. It cuts to
Mhm.
Travis, and you can just feel the anger seething through that kid, man. He's like, "I want to murder everyone." But he's smart. That's how he got out.
I mean, I feel like Lottie did that in that moment, like, said Shauna will lead us because she knew that if she didn't do that, that Natalie was gonna die, like,
Oh,
Shauna would've
yeah.
killed her, like, 100%.
I think so. I
So,
think it was a step in to, like, change the tide a little bit, and I do think that it was gonna be inevitable anyways. So,
yeah.
Lottie was trying to keep Natalie alive, which is so interesting because there's so much push and pull between the 2 of them. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting, kinda relationship to explore.
Yeah, they have a very interesting dynamic in the teen and the adult timeline.
Mhm.
So how do you feel about Travis's character journey from, as some would say, brash and obnoxious in season 1 to more meek and quiet in season 3?
Yeah, I think, the longer you're out there, the more you conform, right? The more
Yeah.
you conform into what you know works. And we are talking about a teenage boy in the 90s who,
Mhm.
probably thought that the best way to handle anything at first was anger and outbursts and that people would
Mhm.
listen to him. And he very quickly learned that that doesn't give you the automatic, microphone to
Yeah.
speak. And so it's been a really interesting journey to see him slowly kind of, like, get into his shell. Like, it's the opposite. He's not coming out of his shell. He's just
Yeah,
crawling into it slowly. It's a little sad to see, to watch him,
it
like,
is.
it's sad to watch him become quieter because you want him to open up and be more vulnerable, and that's really nice. Like to see him be more vulnerable, but to see him kind of retreat, he's now retreating into this like person who is doing everything almost secretively. You have to be careful with that guy because everything he's doing, it's now secretive, right? Like all of a sudden he's like grabbing Cody and he's like, "Let's go," and
Yeah.
he's ready to be out when no one else is around. And then the minute everyone shows up, he's like, "Actually, no, I'm back
Yeah.
on your side."
Yep.
So I do believe he's willing to go whichever direction the wind is blowing, and um, yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing to play with, coming forward.
Yeah. So beyond the physical survival, there's also the emotional toll. Travis sees so much, losing his brother, the group turning darker, the growing tension with Lottie. What do you think was the breaking point for him? Like, what pushed him to kind of pull away from everybody in a way? Do you think it
Like
was when Javi
after,
died?
yeah, yeah, we never really get told what he knows and what he doesn't know about
Yeah.
Javi's death. But I do believe that so much trust had been broken between all of them multiple different times. I do believe the team dynamic starts to disappear after eating Jackie, and like slowly they start to kind of they're not all on the same page anymore. And
Mhm.
I do think that he can feel that and notices that. And when, that moment with Javi, I think he's realized that like he's not really one of them. And he's got to know that, like there was no, I remember the scene where Travis is holding Javi's body and you see Shauna and everyone walk out with the knife,
Mhm.
and they don't even have to say a word. They just have to stand there, and he sees it, and he knows that he has no choice. This is it. He is stuck to conforming if he wants to not be the next one dead, and it's a sad moment to go through because you realize like, oh, this kid's on his own. Like that's
Yeah.
it. Like that, he is the outsider, and he's not going to be brought in most conversations. And you see it in season 3, right? There's the group. He's no longer hunting.
Yeah.
There's all these things that are happening, but he's on the outside of all of them, and that's a very interesting dynamic that I don't know where it leads. I can only guess, but
Why isn't he hunting in season 3? I know they said that Jen learned to hunt, but is there a reason why he's not hunting anymore?
I was never told why. My assumption is that like with the grief of his brother, he stopped doing anything.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I think he shut down, and yeah, I think that's probably what happened, and so they just got someone else to do it. And again, I don't think they fully trust him either, and so there's a weird little disconnect between Travis and everyone else that I think never really goes away.
Yeah.
He's always keeping everyone at arm's length away
Mhm.
since Javi's death.
So this is touching a little bit on season 2 because the
Mhm.
last time that I spoke with you was before that actually aired. Uh,
Mm.
do you necessarily yourself believe Lottie's explanation as to how Travis died as an adult, or do you believe that there could be more to that story? I personally have always thought that she could be not telling the whole truth about what happened.
Yeah,
That's just the vibe I got.
I think one of the most interesting thing about the future timeline in this show is the unreliable narrators that are happening
Yep.
during every single story that kind of takes place about the past. And I think we keep touching on that in the show.
Mhm.
And there's no way I believe that that's all that happened.
Okay.
There's just no way I can believe that. I think once you see their dynamic in the past and like
Mhm.
how it's changed in season 3, and so it definitely makes me question kind of what they were saying in season 2 about their future dynamic.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what happened, but personally as a viewer, I don't buy
Okay. So we're on the same page then.
it.
Uh, Lottie claims that in this moment when Travis died, she claimed that she was trying to help him. Do you believe that he believed that there were supernatural elements at play in that moment, or was he always skeptical? Like always, from when he was a teenager till he died?
I think he's mostly been skeptical, and I think only that period of time in season 2 where there was really nothing to hold on to, and they were doing all the, the gatherings and the prayer circles and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I think that was the only point as to when he really thought maybe there was something else out there helping them. I think beyond that, no, but I do think that Travis has a very large history of addiction, and
Yeah.
I do think that if Travis showed up trying to look for answers while back on his addictions, that it would make sense that Lottie would twist it into it being, about the wilderness and maybe him, wanting that too. And like all of a sudden it becomes more
Yeah.
about that, even though it's really not, it's more about how he's feeling. So I do think there's doubt, I think the conviction at which Juliette Lewis says Travis never believed in that shit. I
Mhm.
think I believe it. I do think that, Natalie would have known him the best this whole way through.
Yeah. Yeah. So to touch on Travis and Natalie, they have this push and pull dynamic. Like one minute they're connected, the next they're at odds. How did you and Sophie Thatcher build that chemistry?
We were so lucky in season one to have our first episode be directed by Deepa Mehta, and who brought Sophie and I together on the first day and just said, like, here, this episode, we're going to take our time and we're going to make sure that this is you guys building the foundation for everything that's to come for the next 25 years. And so I felt like, we really had it click. There's a scene where the two of us are smoking a joint in the
Mhm.
plane in episode 4, and, like, that was the moment that I went like, "Oh, I get it. I get why they're never ever gonna, like, they need each other in some capacity, like, it's like a safety thing,
Yeah.
even though it's toxic, even though it's horrible for them, it's just there." And from then on, it was, like, easy to have that push and pull because Natalie's still part of the group always, and now is the leader and all this stuff. So there is always going to be obstacles in the way when it comes to the two of them that'll never make it easy. But one of my favorite moments in this season for them is like, one of their only moments that they touch, but it's right before, he wakes up in the middle of the night, he sees her going to coach, and he kind of stops her. And you could just actually feel the vulnerability between the two of
Yeah.
them when he's saying, like, they're never going to forgive you for this. And it's like this, you can feel how much he cares about her,
Yep.
and how much she understands that he's there for her, and yet they make this decision and they do it anyways. And yeah, it's clear that that's not gone. Like, it's not gone because in that
Yeah.
moment it's still there. It's just obviously not what's being touched upon right now.
Yeah. So to follow up on that about what
Hmm.
you were just talking about that moment between Nat and Coach or Nat and Travis before Coach dies, why do you think he stood watch for her when she went to kill him, even though he knew what the rest of the group would do, just because he knew that like she was going to do what she wanted anyways? Or
I think in reality, he just wants to be there to protect her however he can in his mind. And I think it's
yeah,
the only person, as we saw in season 2, Natalie's the only person that he'll break his conforming for, right? Like, he tackled Shauna in
yeah,
season 2 when it was going to be Natalie who died. I don't think he could ever see her die. And that's, I think, a big part of this. And so he wanted to make sure that, whatever she was going to do for coach, that it would be done. And so I
hmm,
think he was staying there to make sure that no one got there before she was
yeah,
finished. And I think it was more about that. And I do think he wanted to be there because if anyone did show up, I do think that if it looked like Natalie was going to be killed in that moment when Shauna steps up, I think Travis would have sprung right back in. Like, I do think that there's that innate, he's going to protect her. I think you've seen in the trial too, when Shauna gets up to yell at Nat, immediately Travis is up. And
yeah.
I think it's the only person that he stops sitting back for. Like, he sits back for the whole time for everything that happens. But if Natalie's involved, I think you will see him do whatever he's got to do.
I would agree with you about that moment between them showing how that he still really cares for her and vice versa. That
Yeah,
moment as a viewer made me so sad. Just like sad, it made me feel all these emotions because she was telling him like you don't need to be here, like just go away. Even though she knew that like he didn't mean any harm by being there. Like he like you
no.
said, he was trying to protect her. And that whole sequence, Sophie Thatcher just, oh, she broke my heart. She was so good. She
Yeah,
really
and
was. She was
it reminds
phenomenal.
me it reminds me so much of, like, the end of season 1 when he wants to go look for Javi and he's like, "Go away, like,
Yeah.
I don't need," like, there's this, like, I think there's just this push, that's just how they know how to love, that's all they got. Like,
Yeah.
all they have is, like, "I'm gonna protect you, love," like, that's all they got. And that's, yeah, it's really interesting, really tragic, really sad, and who knows how that suicide pact comes to be, because that's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
that is crazy.
it's a sad, sad thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Travis has been through some significant trauma throughout his character journey since the show began. What has been the most challenging scene for you so far in the show?
Um, hmm. It's probably gotta be holding Luciano,
Yeah.
because it was kinda like my last scene with him, and then also his mom was there, and she
Oh.
was seeing him there, and she was like, I walked off and, like, she's crying, and I think that hit me harder more than anything than doing the scene because, you know it's not real in that moment as you're doing it, but you're feeling really bad for the whole situation, and then
Yeah.
you're imagining what it would be like in that situation, and then to see his mom watching, the screen and coming over and crying, it was, yeah, that was probably the toughest scene to shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the toughest emotionally, and then I think, physically, I think it was pretty gross to do the first time we did the Jackie snacky
Mm,
sequence. That was
okay.
that
Yeah,
was
you
that
guys
was
were
gross.
eating, if I remember correctly, it was
Jackfruit.
okay, jackfruit and rice paper, right?
Yeah,
How did that taste?
gross. Gross. But I don't eat jackfruit anymore, that's for sure.
I've never had it, so I can't say what it tastes like.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Um, Now to touch on Javi's death a little bit more, it was gut-wrenching.
Mhm.
Do you think that Travis blamed Natalie at all for Javi's death, or was it more of like the whole group is at fault kind of thing?
I think he has no idea.
Okay.
I think I you know, I corely, and I've never spoken about this with the showrunners, don't quote me, everybody, but I truly believe that if Travis knew that Javi's death was for sure their fault, I can't imagine he wouldn't have gone nuts violent.
Yeah.
I can't, because it's in him. It's in him. Like he violence is somewhere deep within him. And
Yeah.
so, I can't imagine that we would end up where we are at the beginning of season 3 if he ever in a million years knew that it was a choice to let Javi die and not that he was just dead when they
Yeah.
found him. There's no way. Like I listen, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But to me, as an actor, as a viewer, as someone who's got to defend Travis at every turn, I would have fully justified him losing it absolutely on every single one of them.
Yeah, I would too, honestly. I mean, that's
Yeah,
his brother, so I would too.
there would have been some death somewhere in between
Yeah.
in his hands.
Do you have any guesses as to who Javi's friend was that he spoke about after he came back after being MIA for all that time after Doom Coming happened?
I know too much. I cannot guess. I
Okay,
cannot guess this for you. I know too much of back then. I know too much now. I know everything that's yeah. I know too
that's
much
fair.
information for to have a guess for you.
Okay, that's fair. Yellow Jackets fans absolutely love their theories, as you know. Have you heard any wild ones about Travis that have made you stop and think?
Travis is, Travis is kind of he's he's kind of logical this season. Like Travis to me is kind of like, it's a lot of what I would probably end up doing in this season where it's like I'd retreat to the back, I'd do all that. So the theory that still is just absolutely mind-boggling to me is when people start pulling Travis out as Antler Queen. I'm like, I just like I get conforming. I just can't imagine him ever leading anything anymore. Like I can't see it coming.
That would be a twist.
That would be one heck of a twist, everybody.
Yeah. I've seen some theories that involve Travis. Back in season
Oh,
2,
wow.
a lot of people used to speculate that Lisa was Travis and Natalie's daughter. I don't know if you ever saw that
Yeah, I
one,
do
but that was a
have heard
big
that.
one.
I've heard the daughter situation. I've also, heard that Travis has multiple kids.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't
He
know.
was busy.
He was busy out there, but
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work, but I look forward to seeing what the writers come up with.
So, what is your favorite episode for season 3? You don't have to specify why if it's one that we haven't seen yet.
Um, One of my favorite episodes that we have seen is 6. I think
So
6
good.
is a really I think it's a great episode. I think it just, like, has so much that we expected to see, that was shocking
Mhm.
to see, selfishly, seeing that moment with Natalie and Travis, and then also the shocking ending. Like, I just think that
Yeah.
there was so much, and Pete did such a great job on that episode. Um, you know, there is one to come that's gonna be really satisfying for me as a viewer, and I think that'll be really cool, to kinda see how it all comes together,
Yeah.
when the world gets to see it. So I'm excited for that, but yeah, it's a nice little battle between 6 and 1 that's to come.
Gotcha. Okay. So, what was the biggest difference between filming on a soundstage last season and then filming on location this season? Do you have like a preference for which one you prefer?
Um, Personal life-wise, I love the soundstage just because we're in and out of our sets quicker and, like, home quicker,
Hmm.
but for shooting the show, I feel like we have to be on location.
Yeah.
There's an energy that's different, you're outside, it's shooting in the summer, like, there's something really Vancouver in the summer is amazing. It's a beautiful place, and so, yeah, like, I think that's I would choose location over soundstage for sure. I think it's also just easier to, like, assume the elements when you're in the elements versus in the
Yeah.
soundstage, there's only so much you can pretend to be cold in a very hot soundstage.
Yep.
Um, but and it was just nice to get out of the cabin. I think that's the
I'm
big part.
sure.
So much of season 2's in that cabin, and not a lot outside. And so, yeah, it was nice to kinda have, kinda
Some
more
good scenery.
freedom. Yeah, some scenery was really nice. So I prefer being in it, in the wilderness more, and that's why I think season 1 shooting wise is still my favorite because I feel like we had so many different areas of the wilderness that we kind of explored in season 1, that we went kinda everywhere, right, with the
Yeah.
lake, and then we found the cabin, and then we had the crash site, and then we had there was where they'd go hunting and all those hunting scenes that I got to do, like, that like, being in all these different locations, I thought it was so beautiful, so that's, yeah, I selfishly, I love being on location.
Now, I know you were on a soundstage for most of season 2, but I recall you saying that you did shoot some scenes on location, right? Like
Yeah.
the scenes of you and Natalie like trekking through the snow. That was on location, correct?
Yeah, we did 2 days, 2 or 3 days, up in, like, where they shot Revenant in, like, the
Oh,
mountains in
wow.
Calgary. Yeah, and
Wow.
so that was freezing. We very
Of
quickly
course.
realized what cold was. It was at the end of our shoot, and I remember Sophie Thatcher and I looking at each other and going like, "Oh, this is what this is like. This is what 4 feet of snow is like. Oh, okay, this is different." I was like, "I would love to reshoot the rest of the season again." I was like, now knowing this. But yeah, I remember walking through, like, snow that was, like, almost up to my hips, and it was, like,
Yeah.
exhausted. You can actually hear it, like, there's a one where I think I see Javi's body in season 2,
Mhm.
and it ends up being a fox or something, like, it was just bones.
Yeah.
I remember getting there, and we were hearing the mix, and we sound so out of breath. We sound like we're gonna die. We only walked, like, 15 feet, but in that snow, it just felt like we had ran a marathon, so at that moment, I said, "Alright, it's time to get in shape, guys."
So, what is your favorite aspect of filming a show like Yellow Jackets? I know the cast is pretty close, so
Mhm.
that has to be really nice to be on a set and have that relationship with your, co-actors.
Oh, yeah. It's really nice to get to know each other over all these years too. Like, we've had such a long time to kind of really build and craft these characters. It creates such a level of trust that,
Yeah.
like, everyone knows what each other need. Like, everyone knows that for me, for instance, when I'm doing heavier scenes, I'm just like pacing and walking around and just not talking to anyone. And they
Yeah.
like, and everyone knows, and they just don't disturb you and let you do your thing. And so it's great to have like that much experience with them so that everyone knows kind of how each other work.
Yeah.
Um, I think it just makes the days go by faster. It makes the work better. So it's yeah, that's probably my favorite part about being on ensemble cast is having that like relationship where you just get to know each other's quirks when you work.
Now, does that aspect, like being close with all of your castmates, when you lose a cast member, does it make it more difficult for you then?
Yeah, I think so. But they do a good job of kind of making it feel fulfilling and like that the story makes sense. And so
Yeah.
normally the cast member, even though they're sad to go, they're like just happy with how it turned out.
Yeah.
And so we kind of just celebrate them and people keep in touch. I still see Luciano's family all the time. For instance, like every time we're in Vancouver, we go for dinner there. And yeah, it's yeah, it definitely doesn't like change our personal relationship just
That's
having them leave the show, which is cool.
Have you developed your own backstory for Travis and kind of filled in the blanks about details that we haven't been given on the show, like to make it easier for you?
Um, in some ways, yes. Like there's a few things that I've kind of had to build myself, but most things I found out about when I first started the show
Yeah.
because I asked the showrunners kind of like what the plan was as to where we're going, and they were very clear with some of like, where I would start, and they told me anything that we were going to find out about him that later. So I had like the main building block set, and I kind of knew the guy, and he's a very like impulsive person at first. And so it was easy to kind of just like roll with the punches with him and see what kind of happened. But I've definitely had to fill in some gaps, like the familial stuff and like his relationship with his family, and like, I'd be really intrigued to see if they were to explore that more, like where how close I was. But it's yeah, most of it I kind of got from the showrunners, which was really nice. It made the clarity of building the character so much easier.
Yeah.
I remember asking them if he was going to get like more destructive or more redemptive, and they told me that he would have somewhat of a redemptive arc. And so it
Yeah.
was easier for me to like start Travis at such a more like volatile, crazy place because I knew where we were going. To
Yeah.
if I had started him volatile, but he was supposed to get even worse in season two, and even like then it wouldn't have made sense. So it was nice. They were really great about giving me like kind of the understanding of where we were going.
It's kind of almost like the opposite with Shauna's character. Like Travis and
Hmm.
Shauna have both gone through like similar experiences of loss, and Shauna seems to just become more rageful, and Travis seems to like have become more reserved. It's really
And I think,
interesting to see how it's
and I think
affected
it's
both of them.
And I think it's a great study as to like who you surround yourself with, affects it because Shauna has a group, has
Yeah,
people, can build power. Travis being secluded, it changes kind of what he can and can't do, like your
yeah,
circumstances definitely define how you deal with coping.
yeah, that's very true. I heard in a red carpet interview recently for the premiere that you and Alexa actually worked on a project together. Do you want to
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm so lucky. First of all, Alexa's so talented and one of the most amazing humans I've ever met in my life, obviously. And we got to do this super indie uh, feature film that it's my directorial debut, and I got to put all my friends that I've just admired and wanted to work with them on something for so long. I got to put them in the movie with us and write stuff, and we shot it, you know, with a tiny group of people, and we made it happen. We're actually just about to picture lock and start sound and color, and so the movie will be done in a couple months, which is really exciting, and then we can start talking about where everyone can see it, and
Yeah,
that'll be cool. But yeah, it's great. Alexa's funny in it. It's a coming of age heist movie with like some comedy vibes to it.
okay.
It all takes place in one weekend. It's called Lucky Weekend. And yeah, I'm so excited for everyone to see it because I just think it's so fun and vibey and like yeah,
Yeah,
it's gonna be a good time. And both Alexa and myself are in the movie and we play, pretty different roles from Yellowjackets, which is kind
yeah,
of going to be fun for the entire, Yellowjackets fandom to see us like in a different world, in a different setting.
absolutely.
It'll be cool.
Yeah, I really enjoy getting to see the cast from the show in other roles. It's really awesome. I just saw Sophie Thatcher in Companion, and that was really good
Yeah, it's
a couple
so
weeks ago.
cool.
Yeah,
Sophie's great.
she is. So this will be my last question for you. If you had
Alrighty.
to pick one word to describe the finale of this season, what would it be?
The one I've been going with, and I said it earlier in this interview, I believe it's so incredibly satisfying. I
Okay.
do. I
Yeah,
think it I think it's
that's
a
a good
really
word.
satisfying finale. So
Yeah.
yeah, good luck everybody. It's gonna be a crazy ride. I'm pumped.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today to have this chat with me. It's been so wonderful to hear directly from you about your experience with this crazy season and get some input and thoughts from someone who was directly involved with creating it. So, congratulations on the success of this season and all of your other endeavors. And
Thank
as a
you.
fandom, we are all hoping that we'll see you back on our screens for season 4.
Yes, I hope so. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Emily. I appreciate you taking the time. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. Well, that was awesome. Like I have said many times now, it's always so fun to hear from the cast and the people that are involved in making the show. I've spoken with a couple people so far this season, and it's just wonderful to get their input about the magic that's brought to our TV screen. So I hope you all enjoyed this one. I sure had fun with it. And as always, thanks for buzzing into the hive. And with that, until I spill again.